boy. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Greetings. I hope everybody's having a great Saturday. It's the 15th? 15th, and it's time to discuss
Yes,
TikTok.
it is the 15th.
Honestly, it took me a second there, because, like, it's the funny thing that I've gotten good at, like, telling what day of the week is, because I've got a relatively decent schedule that I maintain most of the time. But then I'm like, what month is it? What day is it? How much time has passed? Oh god, I've got to minimize the... Give me a second here. I'm going to go gray for a second, because I keep forgetting... I keep forgetting to fix this thing with Discord, which I don't even know how the hell to fix it.
That's an excellent question. I don't even know what the problem is.
It's every time...
I don't know what causes that problem. That's like a first for me.
That, like, having a window over Discord causes OBS to go gray and not pick me up. It picks up everybody but my video. It doesn't pick up people's videos. It picks up the images in Discord, and it picks up Discord still in OBS. But, like, all the videos go gray, and I don't know if it's an update from Discord or OBS, because I've updated OBS the last... But this happened before I updated OBS, so let's talk the schedule, because I'm going to complain about technology and how it annoys me. I'm going to throw this docket out, which I actually got set up. Anyway, how are you doing, Momo? For the
Man, I'm like all right. You know, it's hay fever season, so I'm dying. But all right.
It affects me. I have mild allergies, so it's still annoying. I'll probably be more headachy.
I have bad pollen allergies.
I'll still be, you know, snivelly and headachy just as much as anywhere else, because everything hates me in the universe. But it doesn't hate me as much as other people I know, which is fortunate. It's just an overall general hate.
Yeah.
Anyway, we can start today by talking about Paizo, because we got a couple things for them.
Ooh.
First off is the player's guide for the new adventure path, Stolen Fate.
This is the Tian one?
No, this is not the Tian one. It's a weird one involving magical powers and cards. And, like, I guess, Harrow cards. I think this is coming out before the TN one.
Oh, it's an Absalom. Nice.
Yeah, Absalom. Yeah.
Judging by this, yeah, it has a lot of card-based things. Maybe they will add more Harrow card stuff in the second edition of this.
Honestly, I'm not against that. The Harrow cards were neat. I don't think they were used, like, they were used okay, but I don't feel like they're used in, like, a super way.
They're hard to use if you don't have a physical deck.
Yeah.
A lot of dice rolling. That's why I haven't played a Harrower yet in a stream game. Because it's like, man, I don't want to bog down the game with all of the rolling it requires.
I always joke about some of the abilities and things, which are actually really cool from Pathfinder 1st Edition, but they are way too complex to normally use. Like, I really do like the word magic system that they came up with. It was a really cool idea. It would bog down the game horribly.
Yeah.
I'll just call out sacred geometry for being a bitch.
I mean, that's just a feat no one should be allowed to take.
It's hilarious, though. Honestly, like,
They are adding the Harrower archetype. Okay,
that's cool.
And the new bloodline for sorcerers.
Nice.
As well as, I assume by harrowing ritual they mean the harrowing spell, but better.
Yeah.
That harrowing spell in first edition is kind of lame.
Yeah, so it's I guess it's like a powerful, like, mystical Harrow deck. Less comparable, but somewhat comparable to, like, a deck of many things, except less dick. I guess it's like a magical...
Well, there is a Harrow deck of many things, actually.
Well, I guess it's the idea that you're finding cards from, like, a powerful magic deck, and you have to, like, rebuild it or something, and you're 11th level at the start of this adventure. So that's a hell of a power jump, too.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Well, again, like, I've heard that second edition Pathfinder is actually pretty decent at balancing later games, so I'm honestly not surprised.
I've only played at level 1.
Again, I haven't played past. I think I got to 9. And 9 was pretty good, but like, it's just it'd be interesting to see how that later levels do play.
I am automatically into this because of my. Anyone who's played Path with me knows I just play Varisians all the time because of their weird culture.
Okay, that's actually really. Sorry to interrupt. Varisians are pretty neat. But the third adventure is going to be 18th level to start out with.
Ooh.
So it's going to be a high level campaign.
That's some high level right there.
Yeah. So something to keep an eye out and check up on if it's a neat one. The other thing that Paizo has talked about is they've got an open sign-up which has begun, and it's what they call the Beginner Box Days. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out. You register for up until April 17th at RPG Chronicles for an event. It's an event like it's online that you can kind of join in to try. GMs can try the platform, and you get a free PDF of the beginner's box.
Fair.
For doing it. So it's a big call to, if you want to sign up in this thing related to it, and did that actually like pop in there correctly?
It did. I clicked the link. It worked. The last couple of letters, just extra nonsense.
It's just a really weird.
Don't really matter.
It's a really weird link. Thanks, Paizo.
Most of those at the end things don't actually matter for links like this. Just the way it's displayed in the web browser. That's how it is. A computer nerd could tell you more, but long links don't have to be long.
But at the website pf2.com or the Reddit Pathfinder Second Edition or Discord channel, you can sign up. Basically, they're saying like for the week of the 22nd and 30th, you would be able to get a free copy of the Beginner's Box and play with your people. It's an idea of like trying to get people. You're registering with them, saying like, I'm a game master, I want to do this event, and you get a free Beginner's Box. You can play with people on things like Fantasy Grounds Roll20 or Foundry VTT Module Deluxe. So it's pretty neat. And you get a free Beginner's Box if you want to run something there. So I just wanted to shout that one out there. That seems like a neat thing for people that want to try to get into Pathfinder 2nd Edition, which I always support. It's interesting to say, the more I dive into it for like my Tuesday, Thursday shows, the more I'm like, man, they rewrote a lot of really great stuff and like changed things that I feel like are a lot better. And like a lot of the ancestries were kind of there, I feel like, in Pathfinder 1st Edition. Like they have a lot more flavor to them already, I feel like. So I'm sorry, I read up on the Pathfinder 2nd Edition androids. They just feel better written than like the androids in 1st Edition. I don't know, just saying. But so it is an odd thing because I've heard of this game, but I never have played it, and it's like one of those ones I've heard about randomly pretty old ago. Because honestly, it makes sense that they haven't had an actual new edition for 15 years. And there's a Kickstarter for a new one. For 4th edition of the Heavy Gear role-playing, which is like I guess it looks very mecha anime, I would say, The original was back in 1995 was the first Heavy Gear, it looks like.
Neat.
So I'm all up for like a RPG coming back and like, doing a new edition, especially if it's one that's been absent for that long.
It's Canadian.
Yeah. Continuing the story that they were telling in the last one, they have, I think, conversion rules.
It also had a TV show, apparently. And several video games.
Oh.
Okay, I know why, because this came about after Activision lost the rights to Battletech. makes sense to me.
Yeah.
TV show. Heavy Gear, the animated series.
Heavy Gear, the animated series. Yeah.
I believe I have not seen this one. I have seen the Mech Warrior TV show.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have seen.
Oh, perfect! It's a CGI cartoon. Which means it's disgusting to look at
now. Yeah, sounds about right.
The 90s and their obsession with 3D CGI.
Oh my, it is quite a look. The CGI.
It never looked good. It didn't even look good back then.
I mean, in certain, I think there was a couple of things that was kind of half acceptable in.
Final Fantasy one looked good for the time, but that's because they pumped like $20 million into it and never made any of the money back.
Like, I liked the CGI Starship Troopers, but they were always in armor, so it like got rid of a lot of the bad, things. You only saw faces, and the faces they didn't have to do a lot with, in armor, a lot, and it was kind of interesting. But they still not a great medium at all.
No,
it was okay. But anyway, so yeah, 4th edition coming out. It's been. I may have known about that Heavy Gear thing when you mentioned it, but I'm like, I just don't remember it at all. Like, there's just certain animated things that certainly I might have known existed.
Every mech game or thing kind of just blends together because they're all basically identical.
It takes a little bit for things to stand out. Sometimes they do. But...
we know Gundam because Gundam has very specific mech designs.
Yeah.
But most mech stuff just looks like Battletech.
I mean, there's the one style of mech that I always think about for Battletech, which is the weird bulbous head with the 2 arms coming out. I don't even know the design of that off the top of my head, but that's the one I always remember when I think of Mech Warrior / Battletech.
Or the big bulky one, stomped through the cities.
Yeah.
Really tall ones.
Yeah. So, anyway, it's funded, working towards stretch goals, 29 days to go. So, I mean, if you're interested in checking this out, or if you've been someone that's been in one of the older editions, worth it to check out. Looks like $23 for the basic ebook.
It's not bad.
So, $45, they'll include a bunch of adventures, too, and stuff like that. And you can go up to, the softcover and stuff. American, wherever you are in the world, that price converted.
Yeah, it's in Canadian. $30 Canadian for the base one. Figure it out.
Mm-hmm. So, that's the Headgear one. Also, this is just weird, and it's weird enough that I wanted to talk about it then. And it is Inevitable, which is, they describe it as a doomed Arthurian Western RPG.
A lot of genres.
Yes. You're a disastrously sad cowboy knight that failed to stop the apocalypse.
You know what? Fair enough. What more do you have to say?
I mean, that's the sentence I saw, and I'm like, what? Yeah. So, it's weird. It's interesting. I guess it's the idea that, there's a inevitable doom, and you're fighting against the very inevitable doom that, trying to save your people and
They have a little dumb blurb a little bit down. It's what is an Arthurian Western campaign? Arthurian sad knights, a king who's doing his best, but badly. Foolish virtue quest fell to doom. Women in late. Not wrong.
It's not wrong.
I mean that's accurate.
It's just not wrong. It's still really silly, but not wrong. Yeah, and there's a reputation system, a challenge system. You try to go for quests and stuff. So,
Looks like it's D6s. Okay.
Yeah. And, you know, it seems as an interesting idea to combine, like, King Arthur myth and a Western. And just to have a weird, like, Doomsday City or something combined with that. Honestly, I would not have combined any of these elements together in the first place. So, more on them for coming up with an idea and running with it. So, I don't know what else to say. It's fun, dude.
Yeah, I mean, it's a neat idea.
Yeah. So,
Certainly unique.
Yeah.
Man, just the goals. Sad civilian, sad squire, sad knight, sad wizard, sad cowboy, sad monarch.
How sad are you?
Sad cowboy.
I'm a sad cowboy. Oh, all right.
Each tier has a different cover.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Depending on if you want to be cowboy or wizard, you get a different cover.
Yeah, if you want to be a cowboy or a wizard, sorry, you can't be both. It's not allowed. Cowboys can't do magic.
Yep. For $25, you get the PDF and the quick start. And if you just want a quick start of it, it's $2. You back it for $2, you get the quick start.
There you go, bam.
You know, check it out that way. So, you want to talk about some Call of Cthulhu?
Oh, hell yeah.
Hey, you know, we'll have a tonal shift. A Kickstarter for a new Call of Cthulhu book that is a campaign in North Africa at the onset of World War II.
Jeez.
Yeah. So it's
very, yeah.
Morocco is like
Morocco.
I guess a big setting.
It makes sense that it is in North Africa.
Yeah. That's the thing is like other than like Morocco's the big country in North Africa I didn't really know about.
Well, I mean Algeria, Tunisia, those are like the
I know them.
This time, the three important ones.
I know them. Those two by name, but like, unfortunately, it's like Moroccan culture and knowledge of that has overwhelmed.
Shit about Morocco.
I know a little bit. Apparently, Casablanca's in that area. Go figure. You know. So it's got 6 scenarios to form a campaign. Some information, historic events and locations there. Including a lot of those key locations there, some pre-generated characters if you go pick up and play, some art, map, and other aids for basically your GM/keeper. So, yep.
Yeah, I mean, when is it supposed to be? What year is this supposed to be set?
1941. Between 38 and 41. So World War II is technically going on.
You would be in not Free France. You would be in Vichy France controlled Africa.
Yeah. So. Yep. Definitely. I mean, like, you know, it's one of those things. Is like, Call of Cthulhu is always those ones. I do like a lot of the ideas and a lot of the mythos of it. Even though, honestly, as much as I like to try Call of Cthulhu, I know it's not like necessarily the campaign for me from experience and from what I've heard from people.
I've played it. I'm not the biggest fan of it.
That's why I'm kind of like, I test it out. But I do like seeing like more interesting like directions for it. I'm interested to see what kind of campaign it would be for that region and stuff. Which I guess they don't really dive into.
No, there's not a lot of info on that.
Yeah.
Well, there's 6 scenarios apparently.
Yeah.
Presumably delving into ancient ruins, I assume.
It looks like there's something about Irem, the City of Pillars, the lost city of Irem, which I'm not knowledgeable enough for like Cthulhuian mythos to be like that's a thing I can point out.
I do like that they in one of these scenarios they do mention the fact that Churchill did decide to sink the French fleet, which is a pretty messed up thing to do. History. That's real. Churchill did sink France's fleet after they surrendered. He didn't want the Germans having it.
I mean, honestly,
France continued to not enter the war.
I guess as they lost a fleet, that probably was trying to join with them. They were inspired to like, we don't have a military anymore. Let's just.
A couple of reasons. Also, Germany didn't really want them in the war because they were a weak state.
Yeah.
It was more fronts.
It was complex situation.
It's history.
History is interesting and complex.
It's a very interesting time period.
Yeah.
Pressing.
But speaking of Cthulhu, because that's not the only Cthulhu thing, as a transition, apparently there's a huge continued support by Modifius for Octung Cthulhu, their World War II Cthulhuan, with the Season of the Snake coming out.
Snake people.
Yeah, the Ophidians. Which I will also link not only their blog posts on the season.
It's also in North Africa.
Ironically, these things take time to develop, so they probably didn't know about each other, so that's one of those weird things about it. So, like, it's like movies and TV where there's two things that are the same. And
the sister movies are a thing.
Yeah, sister movies. There's an idea floating around, and two people run with it at the same time sometimes. Anyway, the first mission for Season of the Snake, Our Lady of the Eternal Sapphire, is available for free. And there's the link for it. So
I'd rather play this than Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah, it's a 2D20 system.
Silly.
I mean, I guess that's the difference. Is Call of Cthulhu is a lot more serious, and Octung Cthulhu has a little bit of a...
It is a serious matter, because it's, World War II and the Nazis, but it has the veneer of, like, a Wolfenstein, where it's like, there's that disconnect of, this is just stupid.
Yeah, Wolfenstein, or maybe like an Indiana Jones adventure.
Yeah, the pulp aspect is there, unlike Call of Cthulhu, where it's just the Cthulhu aspect.
Yeah, because, like, there's a lot of seriousness to, like, something like even like an Indiana Jones, like the Expression Orders. They're dealing with Nazis. They're doing something horrible. There's a pulp to it that makes it entertaining and, like, less serious. And I feel like Octung Cthulhu does that pretty well. So, expect more of these. I don't know. It looks like they are going to have the Serpent Sands PDF on the 18th. And a bunch of freebies related to it. So they're doing like a bigger book and then a bunch of freebies around that. So, like, this is one of those freebie missions. You can expect the big book eventually too if you get interested in it. Yeah. Guess that's the best throw out on that one I can do for the Season of the Snake. Modifius is busy this week, and this is one that you might be interested in. The Capital Rules expansion for Fallout Wasteland Warfare.
I do love the Capital Wasteland, except for the fact that it's in Fallout 3.
Yeah.
I don't like Fallout 3 that much, because Fallout 3 is kind of a bad game.
I mean, I like the world of Fallout 3, I gotta say.
The world, well, that's the thing, is the world is great, but the rest of it is... Actually playing it is not fun.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, but I can see that. Just,
It's got, I see the cooler Brotherhood of Steel, and then the cooler Enclave.
Yeah.
Although they're both kind of, well, the Enclave in Fallout 3 is a little bit dumb. But
yeah.
They're the comic book villains that they've always been.
Yeah. I'm interested because I know there's like the 3 levels of everything. There's the true miniatures game, there's the miniatures / RPG merger, and of course then the full RPG. And I'm interested if the book takes any of that middle ground, if it like where they combine Wasteland Warfare.
At least lore.
Yeah, that's true.
You could use.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're running a Fallout game, ideally you know enough about the U.S. in Fallout to run one, but it's not always a requirement, right? Because you have the power to Google things.
Yes.
So books like these could have lore that do help, and at the very least, it tells you potentially how these factions act. At the very least.
Very, very true. So, if you want to get into some more Wasteland Warfare with the miniatures game, or honestly, if you're at the miniatures / RPG combined, that's a good place for that. They might have their own thing for the true RPG if you're
I feel
interested.
like they will, but I feel like they'll probably release some setting books because at least Bethesda likes to promote their version of Fallout, their sort of world of it.
Yeah.
And the only thing we have currently for the Fallout RPG is Commonwealth, which, I mean, it's fine and dandy, but it's very surface level of the region.
Yep.
It's not a very complex region.
So.
Whereas the Capital Wasteland is probably that mid-level of complex, because you have like 4 factions fighting there. You have the Brotherhood, Enclave, various settlements, and then super mutants. Although again, Sidecharger's big right with Bethesda Fall games is they don't do anything with super mutants. They just make them bullet sponge enemies. They never talk. They never do anything. They take away the interesting aspect of super mutants to make them big dummies you shoot at.
So something to check out. And I got 2 more modifious things. They were, again, very busy week. So this is a link to their blog post about it, but they're throwing out a bunch of stuff for Star Trek Lower Decks, which is one of those things that they do talk about. That's a weird thing because it's a show which is an animated show that's a canonical parody of itself. And that's the weird thing, because it's like everything is supposed to be canonical in there, but it's also parodying a lot of that stuff. But they basically are putting out a bunch of things for it. Crew packs for like the PDFs if you want to play the characters kind of thing. A standalone adventure they're planning on doing. And a bigger hardcover book that's like a campaign guide that's not only about like bringing, if you want to do like more human Star Trek adventure based on that kind of thing, but also information about being like the bottom of the bottom in Starfleet and stuff.
You're not A-team at all. You're like the no-names who die constantly.
Yes, you can play the no-names that get like, it's like, you, come along. Crap.
Yeah.
I mean, I do like the idea that, like, expanding a universe like that is good for something like this. And
it definitely can make it a little more playable because, like, I mean, it's cool that, I mean, because Star Trek, obviously, you're playing episodes, so obviously you do have to be the A-team, because that's the characters of Star Trek. They just send their command team to the dangerous things. I don't know. But, I mean, there's definitely, like, a base level. I'm like, man, what does Jimmy in engineering think about all this, you know? Well, not like the chief engineer, like the low new guy, right?
Well, I think that's the good idea about, like, having the campaign guide when they eventually put that out there, because I've seen the first season of this, and it's like, you know, what happens when Jimmy and his pals get into their own misadventures while the main crew is causing the misadventures, you know, like, oh, there's aliens invading the ship. What do Jimmy and his friends do, like, you know, as a result of this? Do they interact with the higher crew? Do they have their own misadventures resulting on this, you know? That's not a bad idea for something, too. Regardless if you go for something a little bit more humorous or not, you know.
I really don't know anything about Lower Decks aside from, like, seeing some of the jokes posted elsewhere in clips. It seems, like, funny enough.
I enjoyed it enough, I think. I'll probably
seems like you have to really be a Star Trek fan to get some of the jokes.
Yes, I agree.
So maybe not my cup of tea, because I have only really seen... I mean, I've seen a lot of Star Trek, but, like, man, I only like Next Generation out of any.
Next Generation is one of the better ones.
It's like the only one I liked.
I can understand that. There's plenty of mixed stuff out there afterwards. As someone that's seen a lot of Star Trek, you know, so honestly, you know, it's an interesting thing, and I'm glad they're doing more extended material. There are some that I thought about that I'm like, we haven't really gotten a lot of things for certain other ones. Like, we kind of got Voyager from the Quadrant stuff. Same with, like, DS9. And then they kind of talked about original series, Next Gen / Enterprise, with just in general about that. And, like, now they're doing, like, a more, like, here's a Discovery / Brave New Worlds thing, and here's the Lower Decks thing. And yes, those are the new stuff, but of those, this one at least brings a different direction, and, like, also maybe having your own books rather than just it's the quadrant books might be nice sometimes. Just saying. A little bit more on some of these things. I don't know. Does our Gamma Quadrant book talk about running an adventure on a space station? I don't know. I don't think there's a lot of it. Maybe a little bit. But and I don't think I have a good link for this because I ran into it by being a good boy and going through my
your emails?
My emails, which Modivius, I'm on their at least their newsletter thing. So I'll see if I've got a good link in here to this. That's the Modivius website. I don't think that links to anything. No, that's an image. So the last big thing is Modivius is partnering with Mana Project Studios for a release of Historia, Not the End. Mm-hmm. Which is a dark fantasy Renaissance setting that will be used with 5e. 17 playable races of anthropomorphic animals, divided into further species for 15 different player levels, 10 new classes to fit a Renaissance setting, magic and history, firearms and stuff, backgrounds, factions, careers.
Nice.
It's a furry game, I guess. It's anthroids.
I mean, fair.
You know,
it's becoming a popular thing these days.
Yeah,
because it's just a growing community, and people have gotten over the weird like 2010 things of oof, gross furries.
I honestly have never cared either way. If it's interesting enough, it's fine. If it's not interesting enough, whatever. You know.
Also, I mean, like. We fuckers been playing anthropomorphic animals in video games since the dawn of them, so like, just fucking deal with it. Look, man, like, you point me a 90s game and it'll have a furry character in it. That just was the times.
Oh, there we go. Mana Project Studios. At least I will link to the Mana Project Studios. Yep, there we go. There's their artwork, which seems to match it. So there's at least something. I don't know if that's full, but that's at least the people that are publishing it along with Modifius. So it's Modifius doing what they do best a lot of times nowadays, is someone that can't publish something, they become the publishers for it and partner with them. Though again, it sounds like there's a little bit maybe more of a partnership, getting like some help or something. I don't know the full extent, but hey.
This character sheet is very bizarre.
Oh, the PDF character sheet. Yeah, that's
strange. It's certainly strange.
Yeah. Yeah.
It seems like this might be a rules light system, judging by the lack of mechanics on this sheet.
Okay, so I'm sorry. Not the End is one of their two. Historia is the not the End. That's not it. That's a different system. Sorry, it's one of the two that they're doing.
It's a little less furry than I was expecting.
Yeah, so Historia is the furry one. Not the End is.
I've got the Historia link now.
Okay, thank you.
There's Historia link.
Okay, thank you. It's what they're doing is they're partnering for a bunch of the different ones, and it sounds like some of these are like the Not the End is an Italian role-playing game, so it's probably getting like an English release and stuff like that, and other languages.
This cool character sheet.
Not the End looks interesting too.
It does look kind of cool.
So I mean, like it looks like they're doing a bunch of interesting game systems that this company's doing, and they're getting like a big helping hand in printing, at least by Modifius. So a partnership to be, get some more cool stuff out there. Modifius does this a lot. Good for them. Something to check out.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it makes sense. Just reading through it. It seems cool.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that just because I'm a furry chap.
Mm-hmm. Look, I'm decidedly neutral because it's like it's fine if it's there. It's fine.
You can play a badger. Sorry, I just scrolled up and there was a badger with a gun.
It is Renaissance era, so badger with a gun makes sense. The statement of just, you can play a badger. I love that. Last thing is, we've talked about the One Ring and stuff like that, and I don't know how much I've been able to tell it apart because, honestly, goddamn you, Free League, you're sometimes confusing in your releases here. So what is this? This is the... They're taking their stuff from One Ring, which is their role-playing game, and making a Lord of the Rings game, which is the 5e version of the One Ring, and they're calling it Lord of the Rings instead of the One Ring in order to separate them.
Man, that's a lot.
Yes! So, we've got not the One Ring RPG, but by the same people that do a One Ring RPG, and probably a lot of the same flavor as that, the Lord of the Rings role-playing game, which is also Lord of the Rings, but it's 5e rules for it.
Dude, I'd love to have a video of Elijah Wood talking about it. Elijah Wood does not seem like the dude who would go to have talk about your tabletop. He's a great actor, and by all accounts a lovely individual who does many things for the independent film industry. But man, he is not your spokesperson. He does not have a spokesperson voice. Apparently it's going to be a live play, though. So you know what? Maybe I'll watch it.
He's just like, you know what? Okay, fine, live play, sure. How much am I getting paid? Sometimes maybe he really is into that kind of thing. We just don't.
I genuinely don't know that much. Aside from he has made a video game and he's in a lot of weird horror movies.
Yeah, these are things I knew too. I mean, it's fine. As much as Wizards shot them in the foot, 5e is still very popular, and more stuff based upon it is fine. Honestly, it seems like the idea of using 5e as a skeleton and making a lot of neat things is pretty good, and I'm okay with that still.
5e does have one of the current best D20 skeletons.
Yeah.
I'm curious how this will play. I assume there's not going to be a lot of magic. Magic isn't really a thing in those games.
Yeah. Again, I think when we were talking their own system, the One Ring system, it's a lot easier to, do that. You're building your own kind of classes and builds and stuff. But with the 5e one, where there normally is, magic and stuff, and you're kind of removing that, there's some questions.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because, in Lord of the Rings, wizards don't really exist in the same capacity they do in Fair Fantasy. They're more like clerics in that regard, but they can't do high-level magic because I forget the reason why. I know Gandalf is forbidden from it because man has to solve its own problems. But then there's some reasons for Saruman and Radagast why they don't do high-level magic either. It just might not exist for them on the world. But I haven't read Lord of the Rings in a while, and I haven't ever read the big-ass lore book because I don't want to read it.
I have to confess, the only one I've read is The Hobbit.
That's the only, in my opinion, that's the only one worth reading because the trilogy has not aged well in its writing style.
Yeah, Hobbit's always fun. Yeah, that's the thing, Worm. I just don't know how they're going to turn the 5e into a magic light system, so that's my big curiosity about it.
It is Third Age, so it will be during the War of the Ring, it looks like.
Yeah, so... Alright, well, that's last big thing on the list to check out, and that's our main topic of stories, so we can get into our deeper discussion, which I just... Honestly, because it's going to come up again, and we kind of have hit on it before, I have mass battles and large combats as today's topic, because they come up. We kind of hit on it in the past. But I feel like just talking about not only, mass combat as a thing, but just these larger, big battles and how to handle them sometimes, that you honestly, for various reasons, could write yourself into it or adventure yourself into it logically. Certainly, I'm going to say now, as a GM, you could just eliminate them from existing if you really wanted to. But then comes a logical dissonance because, honestly, if the way you were writing things, sometimes you just have to, hand wave it. I will give an example of a time where I was forced into a giant mass battle. So, this was me running Carrion Crown, the final adventure, Adventure 6. And so, in Adventure 6, there's a big dungeon. And the idea is you're going to interrupt a ritual at the center of this dungeon. They secured the initial floor because it's an underground dungeon. And one of the characters was like, I have, I think it's the prying eye spell or something. I'm going to scout out the dungeon with it. Which was a great idea. But then their idea was, let's just skip the dungeon and go right to the ritual. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. An alarm is raised. Every bit of forces that was behind you, I now have to time out when they're going to come into the battle. Yeah. There was no skipping it. It was a fortification of the Whispering Way. It wasn't a bunch of random monsters. It was an enemy fortress. Dungeon. I had to run a mass battle that I think lasted 3 sessions. And through using a lot of the resources they had built up, and basically everything, and a couple of really interesting strategies, they did manage to win. It was a bitch for them. And a bitch for me to run. But this was just I'm going to cheat the system. What do I do then?
Yeah.
And the mass battle I had to cheat to make new rules of for, Buccaneers. The custom rules I came up with were really cool. They aren't great. They're okay. They're a lot better than the base rules of mass battle that existed in Pathfinder. But, I can't recreate that very easily.
No. I've done mass battle in Pathfinder and in 5th edition.
Ooh.
It's... To say it isn't fun is a little bit of a lie. Because it can be fun. Mm-hmm. The problem is it takes forever.
Yes.
I don't quite remember the mass combat for Pathfinder, but I know the 5th edition one we used, and we used the mass combat UA, which is the only form of mass combat that exists for 5th edition. That session took 6 hours. It was just too much. The way I tend to use mass battle as a concept of big armies fighting each other, the way I tend to do it is I don't. I have that be narrative, and I have the players take part in several smaller battles within the mass battle. That's how I...
Yeah. That is the easy way of doing it, definitely, is to reduce your characters, especially if they're not in charge. But the problem comes when, you're in charge of an army, which...
Buccaneers, where we were in charge of an armada.
Yeah. That can cause some issues there. There's times when, honestly speaking, it becomes hard to say, hey, you, level 10 people, us level 5 people are going to lead this army, and you're going to be below us. Yeah. That can be hard to kind of narratively excuse sometimes, too. And it's that's, I think, the thing is, situations where you want to do certain things narratively don't always work, and there are things you can avoid too. For larger combats, honestly, trying to avoid a lot of enemies, which is hard. And Worm, to your point, to speed up a combat encounter, that requires a lot of setup in order to even try to. 5e, I think, would be easier because, honestly, most monsters in 5e are relatively simple.
Yes.
Not to bust it, but, that does make it easy. Stab goes in, stab comes out, call it a day. Pathfinder or older editions like 3.5, where I've had some experience with it and trying to do some stuff previously, it ends up being, you have to know, these spellcasters, what do they know? This unit of things, what kind of abilities do they have? What kind of feats do freaking people have? And what ones would apply? And, Yeah, I think the thing is, the way that even Buccaneers of the Shackled Sea had their mass combat rules were pretty easy. It was basically, here's a bunch of units. Each unit is it's its own creature. Fight it out. It still would have taken a while, and the rules weren't great, honestly, to how that battle worked. But it was like, that's the basic rules that they provided. Is like, roll some d20s, things happen with damage. This is the kind of damage these units do to each other. One is sunk or drived away or something like that, and it sort of works, but it's not great. It's a lot easier than being unit-based for mass combat is probably the easiest way.
I recall Wrath of the Righteous, the adventure path, not the video game.
Mm-hmm.
It had its own mass combat rules. They weren't great, but they weren't as complicated as the Kingmaker one. Because you're not the one in charge of the army, you're the heroes of the crusade.
Yeah.
However, they weren't particularly fun.
Mm.
People have since made better ones for that adventure path.
That's good. It's one of those things that, like, unfortunately, just building a storyline and developing a storyline, you end up in situations where you have to deal with larger combats in general, whether it's mass or not.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always, you try to speed it up as a GM, but it just always feels like a slog.
Game where you played Badger.
Yeah.
The pirate and all that chaos.
Yeah.
There was a big battle at the end of that game. I had originally intended for that to be larger. My original intentions was to have you go to Rosevane, city get attacked, session where you protect the city, planning session to go assault the enemy fortress, attacking enemy fortress, attacking the enemy tower, and then fighting the final boss. I simplified that a lot because it was going to be 5 sessions of back-to-back combat, and I didn't want to run that, and I know players didn't want to play that.
No. And
So I heavily simplified it and narrated most of the actual mass combat.
I think that's the issue with a lot of large combats, because they take so long, they can kind of get honestly boring. I think in something more akin to Pathfinder, it is a little better because there's more variety in combat.
Yeah.
But like in 5e, where the combat is relatively simple, you really want it to be quick, is the thing. Because combat is relatively simple. Stabby bit goes in, stabby bit comes out, call it a day.
Sometimes you cast a big AoE spell.
Yeah.
You only really have a couple of options.
Yeah.
For combat and position.
And I do agree, again, as I was kind of saying with you, Worm, that extra time that you might spend setting up stuff can help with big battles and mass combats. Yeah. But, like, it doesn't always feel worth it, because also it's like, it just is a lot of information sometimes. Like, I remember trying to set up a mass combat, or like just a large battle, and I'm sorry, the bad battle I was talking about, it was overwhelming. Yeah. Because sort of like, I had to know all these different units, I had to keep track of the time, I had to keep track of all these spells that people were constantly throwing out, regardless, even if I'm like breaking it down into like not in, like, groups of things, initiatives and stuff. I did that because I needed to. Like, oh, all these minions go at this level, all these minions go at this level, this is this group's initiative. Like, and it just was so messy because of it all. And it wasn't really worth it. I just... You don't know what to do about it sometimes. And, just large battles that have a lot of enemies, just, they aren't necessarily fun, but it's sort of like PCs can just be like, hey, you, 50 dudes, we can take you. And I'm like, please don't. Please don't.
I felt that when I did the Star Wars game, which, I mean, game had problems, but the combat wasn't one of them. In combats, I threw a lot of enemies at you at once, but I had them have significantly reduced HP, so they would go down in 2 hits. They would still get shots off and do stuff, but they'd go down because you're fighting fucking stormtroopers, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're not tough dudes. They're just dudes with guns. I feel like that's a good way to do mass combat if you want your players to feel like cool. Is just have a bunch of weak shit mooks that'll die in 2 hits there.
This is a system that I actually do really like that helps with this thing that came about during 4E, which hasn't been replicated. The minion system. Where they had creatures which could do a bunch of damage, you know, and they were appropriate to the level, like they could hit you, or, like, you know, do damage. But what were they? Minions, so they died in 1 hit. You know, like, I have very powerful minions that can do a lot. You can still slice your way through them at high levels because you're supposed to be able to, but they're meant to, like, you know, they're like the elite stormtroopers that might be able to damage you, but not.
That's like what I tried to replicate because I did know of them.
Yeah,
and I think I did a good job because the combats were still deadly. I recall I've downed people consistently in that game.
Yeah,
and brought people to HP pretty consistently, which is about what I like doing. I like to have that threat, but I don't like to make it super deadly, right? Like, ideally, I want at least 1 PC per combat to go down to lower HP.
Yeah.
That's just how I run my game. I go in telling my players this is how I run my games. They are typically a little deadlier than your average campaign.
I think the idea also that Worm has brought up of, like, a skill thing, that's what I did for Buccaneers.
Yes, we did that for Buccaneers. It worked pretty well. It won't really work for any other.
Yeah, it's situational.
Battle.
Yeah.
It also has the problem of it was the coolest part of that book because it wasn't written by Paizo in 2013. And a lot of it's book 5, right?
It's book 5.
Book 5 for that AP is bad, in my opinion, because it's kind of filler until you go fight Harrigan. And then even Harrigan's fortress has been, oh, okay, it's just a 2013 Pathfinder dungeon, okay.
Yeah.
It's small, and cramped.
The way they normally run it is also infiltration. They're like, if an alarm is raised, there's waves of people that come after you. You're trying to break in without raising the alarm, and I'm like,
why do we do that during a war when we have an army?
I don't know. That's some of the things that they choose for here. You've established yourselves as rulers of an island, been setting up an island. You just had this army for a big battle at sea. You know, there's a lot of questions on their decisions in the book that I feel like, again, there's a mixed bag in the way that Skulls and Shackles is written.
Yes.
And certainly there's ups and downs, but I feel like this back half is weak in a way. The confrontation with Harrigan, the battle with Chelix, and then effectively rebellion against Bonefist because he didn't want to get involved in the battle with Chelix. You know, that's the 3 main things that are kind of at the back end here. And I feel like, yeah, narratively speaking, having the big thing here at book 5 is taking down your old nemesis Harrigan. That's fine. Maybe just having, like, a, battle at sea against him or something where, like, you have to fight your way onto the ship or something, or, like, make it a little bit better narratively or something. I don't know. There's just some ways that they could play it that I'm not sure about it. Some of these adventures are hard to, like, figure out where they're going for.
It's old writing from... It's still... a lot of the 1E adventures still have the mindset of an older D&D, right?
Yeah.
Which is certainly an issue.
Some of that works, but I feel like in an adventure that works a lot better is something like, I don't know, Rise of the Rune Lords, which I found a lot of fun. But guess what? It's like an exploration dungeon crawl type adventure. Yeah. You know you're getting into that from the beginning. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of dungeons. Guess what? I'm planning on that, I made a character that's like, we're doing dungeon exploring a lot? Cool. I make a character for dungeon exploring, I'm mindset dungeon exploring. Random dungeons as a pirate sort of works sometimes, but not really.
It sometimes works, but then you remember they're designed by someone with the mindset that 3.5e is still a thing.
Yeah.
So it's just like random trap, random insta-kill effect, 2x2 hallways. By the way, fight this huge-sized creature with waves of exhaustion in a 30-foot room.
I thought that was terrible. I'm sorry. I if people picked it up because I did have a mute unmuted. The witch character in a 15 by 15 room where he's supposed to somehow avoid melee combat, and I'm like,
that room was 9 squares. The entire party couldn't fit in that room.
And you're supposed.
It would have been the 3 melee characters walk up the stairs and punch this man to death.
I was just like, what? Because, even, reading up on the stuff, they don't plan for him to run out of that room to help with anything. Yes, if you had the Tengu down in the room below, would he have run to help him? No. They don't have that set up for anything, I'm just like, what? And, I think it's, Dust of Disappearance is what he uses to, go invisible, and I'm like, that's... What?
Easily counterable.
Easily...
By Invisibility Purge, or the See Invisibility that we all have.
Because you've used invisibility multiple times before for shenanigans. Guess who also is supposed to use invisibility, which I'm not going to have? Harrigan!
No, this is my hot take.
It's what?
I fucking knew Harrigan had some bullshit like invisibility, because every humanoid in Pathfinder is soft-built to escape.
Well, he fights to the death, but,
They're built to have
doesn't.
These bullshit evasion abilities that make the combats not fun.
He has it, I'm going to confess, because he has some rogue levels. He's a multi-class, so...
The Necromancer in Carrion Crown, which broke 2 players' sanity completely. That just went invisible, and because the 2 mages fell to single effect, that combat went until that mage had no spell slots left.
And that's the thing is...
A lot of combats that are just designed that way in old Pathfinder.
Even that guy fights to death, but you know what he does? He pretends to escape so he can dick with you more.
Yeah.
It's a necromancer. Necromancers are awful to fight. I'm sorry. Even in newer editions, necromancers have just dick spells. That's always been necromancers. Yeah. So, I'm like, ah. So that's why I'm like, honestly, fuck the invisibility for Harrigan. I've changed a few things that have just been
everything we've learned of Harrigan does not lead to the conclusion that he would ever use invisibility.
His eye patch apparently can do that or something. It's an actual one of the magic items they introduce.
Dumb item. You also didn't ping the server, apparently.
Oh, I didn't hit that button. Let me...
I don't think you could enter.
Oh, shit. Let me just go over to that. Oh, I didn't do it here.
Yeah, you didn't hit the enter button, I think. There you go. The ping exists now.
The ping exists now. I'm a little late for it.
It's almost over.
Oh, and I didn't ping Twitter. Well, there's the pings now. A little late. Well,
but fair enough.
Maybe later you're having weird sound effects or something added into here.
Sound effects. I could make the clack noise.
You can make the clack
through
noise.
the Discord soundboard.
Please don't.
Quack.
Oh, it has a little animated thing go across.
It's so dumb.
Thanks, Discord soundboard. That was super required. What was I saying? Look, there are some abilities that Harry can have that I think are perfectly fine for the build he has. I'm going to tell you that. Which work. And make him a fearsome foe to fight beyond just, I'm a dude that does martial stuff. He doesn't really have magic. The invisibility stuff was just not needed, I don't feel like.
Be honest. I don't know how much he's gonna get to do because there are at least 2 characters in the party that are very efficient at stopping marshals from doing things.
He is technically for you a deadly encounter.
He might be immune to like stagger and stuff. To be fair, there are enemies that do become immune to that.
He is, I will tell you, he is a pretty decent build, and then, has some interesting effects. We'll see how they go, honestly. That's the question. Because it could just come down to he rolls shit,
He could roll bad, we could roll bad. He could get shut down by abilities.
Yeah.
He might... that's the risk with bosses. They could just die in 3 rounds.
Yeah. He has a lot of great ways that he can set up into... He has a whole bunch of abilities that are made to make him be able to basically sneak attack without needing allies.
All it takes is, 1 crit.
Mm-hmm.
And then, half his HP's gone.
That's true. It would do a lot of damage to it. One of your crits would do a lot. And the fact is, he's got a pretty decent touch AC, but even so, it's still a touch AC.
Yeah. Things have to have, I think at this point, I have plus 19 on my first shot. So, to miss, most things in Pathfinder, I have to roll 1.
Yeah, it's definitely, your first shot is probably going to hit.
The first shot is pretty much guaranteed to hit, unless it's that one.
Yeah. I would tell you, he will be probably missed by people, though. You got some really good rolls last time, which were a bunch over 30. He has over 30 AC.
That's just high-level Pathfinder.
Yeah. Again, you guys are 13. He is, I think, a CR 16 enemy. So, that's pretty fearsome to fight you guys.
But we have a transmuter, so he could just get shut down immediately.
Shenanigans could happen.
Shenanigans.
But anyway, getting back to, a lot of this stuff I had to rewrite, and I have to rewrite another mass battle because the beginning of the next book is a mass battle that's a second oceanic mass battle with even more units. That's the issue, is because it's sort of not only do you have your forces, which may or may not have taken some damage at the previous mass battle, but sort of they have a whole list of, here's a bunch of other people that definitely would help you out if you're Chelix is coming. Hey, guess what? I can't remember her name right now.
Tessa?
Yeah.
The one who, controls half the council or something?
Yeah, the one that's in charge of the council. The Master of Gales, who doesn't have a fleet, but he's a powerful druid that could show up with his ship, and do some shit. He would join in. Hey...
this book made the mass combat ship rules.
Yeah, it introduced it.
Yeah. This is where ship mass combat was introduced. Was this adventure path?
I think there are like another place where they try to refine it a little bit more.
They were re-released in the advanced combat guide, and they're still not good.
Yeah. I didn't look at the mass combat version of it. I think that's what's on the website, the PS50 20. But like, I'm like, okay, and then they could get like more of Aeronox's forces because he'd jump in Hog and stuff like that, and all these other groups that are like, there are a bunch of people you've met that would certainly have their own forces, you know, and come in there. Yeah, they're being forced in for like testing.
Kind of, yeah.
And I'm just like, I don't want to do another mass combat. I don't want to write rules for another mass combat, especially because it's technically the first thing in the next book. It's like mass combat, dungeon, mass combat, and, you know, I'm just like, you know, it just, again.
It's a lot on you, and then it is a lot on us as players to deal with that.
Yeah. I think that's the other thing about a mass combat is it's, whether it's pre-made or not, it involves so much more stuff for everybody, you know, because honestly, for players, they might be in charge of more stuff, or even if they're not, it requires so much more patience, because big battles or mass combats, they got to be sitting there for so much longer and stuff, and it also, like, how many times are you going to change your plans? Because you go, start planning your next move, and after 10 things go, things have changed like 3 times in the way the combat's going. And you've had to change your idea of what I'm going to be doing with my character on my next turn 3 times.
These mass combats are a very big part of the last 2 books.
Yeah.
They're like a huge part of the story.
Yeah. That's the issue.
Yeah, that's the... There's no way around these, because they're required to happen for the story to go forward.
Like, the idea was, if I didn't run the mass combat or stuff, and,
No, it's not set at level 1.
No.
They never hint that you're meant to do mass combat. Because in the older books, they never hint at what you're supposed to do until you have the next book in front of you. They want you to read all 6 books as a DM and then tell your players.
The problem is sort of like, reading through all 6 books, I probably should have just done that at the beginning and like had an idea. But the problem is there's a lot in them, you know. So it's sort of like it takes a lot of time and effort to read through all of them. And honestly, because there's so much time in between each book, you got to reread them anyway. And it's sort of like I just didn't bother. I, like, you know, had an idea of what each of them was, and that was about it. I didn't go to depth about them, which does hurt you, certainly. And mass combats like Swarms is very hard, because Swarm rules are weird, depending on which edition and what game you're using. So, then it's sort of like Swarm versus Swarm, almost. Yeah, don't open a book and say, get ready for mass combat. Yeah, no. Like, I like the idea of, like, big epic battles, but, like, it's just running them in a way that feels appropriate is hard. I think it's the big thing. And you could run them straightforward, whether a mass combat or a big battle. Again, there's plenty of mass combat rules out there. None of them are great, but they're okay.
Some are better than others. People have made much simpler systems for these.
Yeah.
I was just looking up those. I couldn't tell you any off the top of my head because I don't know them.
The system which I will talk about now is one that I always felt like, from when I read about it, it had some problems. I'm not going to say that. But it felt the most like it worked because it just was almost one-to-one with basic rules. And that was, honestly, the 3.0 mass combat rules. Because there was a huge-ass book that came up with them, and it was basically like, here's mass combat. It's your normal game, except all the monsters and units and players are units. Here's rules for that. and added a few more layers on there, and it was fine. It was just as complex as 3.0 was, which 3.0 had some complexity issues. I'm not going to lie about that. And that was a big problem about it. They didn't make it simpler than the normal rules. They made it the normal rules. Was that better? Was that fine for if you were actually trying to run it? Honestly, for everything, it was fine for the actual rules. Running it still sucks because I tried to use those rules and you still have like a bajillion units to go through, and it's a lot more than players usually. Yeah. You know, it ends up that way that it still took a while. It still was a big battle. Even if you boiled it down to a big battle, it's still a goddamn big battle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you approach either mass combat or these large encounters with a lot of units, or if you're even in something like an older edition of Pathfinder, where you got issues with things like people that do a lot of summoning. Here's the thing is, summoning also can cause a large battle.
Yes.
So be careful of that too. I like the concept of summoning. It's one of those ones that you have to like have a talk with someone that's going to be using it. Honestly, be like,
yeah, I mean, in Buccaneers, you saw a Cyclops encounter become 10 Cyclopses versus like 12 summons, because I had to, or the party was going to wait.
Because like,
and I imposed rules on myself to never summon more than 2 creatures.
And that was one of those situations where it was like, let's just bumble into everything.
Do this or the stream game ends. Because some people made a very bad plan.
There was just a combination of bad plans over and over again sometimes.
A combination of bad plan and enemy placement.
Mm-hmm. It's just... Why 4 bad plans? Please no.
Because our leader is Cell and Eric. They are not famous for making good plans.
Yeah. But that turned up, that's when a big battle came out of nowhere. And yes, countering it required the summoning spam, which that's an okay time for it. When you've got an issue like that, I will not argue about it. But like, you also don't want to have like, it's one of the reasons that I will, if I'm playing a first edition, the summoner one that, the one that sacrificed a lot of Eidolon for just mass summoning. Yeah. I say no to that one.
Master Summoner or whatever.
Yeah, Master Summoner. I say no to that build because it just is. It's just stupid ridiculous. And so, like, I'm usually like, if you're gonna summon something, just like summon one big thing, please.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep. I limited myself to 2 summons. Was it? And then as soon as I got elementals, I didn't summon anything else besides elementals.
Yeah. It keeps it also simple too for like. Honestly, that's a thing about like summoning where you can get a lot of creatures. It bogs. You have to remember, it's bad enough when there's a lot of creatures bogging down as a GM. It also can happen as a player. If you like.
When I had to summon that big combat, I was mentally out of it for the rest of that session. I could not function to do anything else. I could barely even speak at the end of that because my brain was so numb from all of the stat box activity.
It's. You think about that, it's the same thing that, like, I get that, too. Like, when I have a lot of stat blocks, it just numbs me, because sort of, like, you have to switch in between things and, like, do a bunch of different things. And that's a large combat, is you have to be ready for all these different stat blocks, or all these different units, and you have to figure out ways to organize them, and that's the setup for big combat / mass combats.
Yep.
You have to hope you'll be ready. Because I've harped on it a few times, that initial like adventure I talked about in Carrying Crown, the big problem also with that is that final encounter was already a big battle.
Yeah.
It's a big battle. Lots and lots and lots of extra units. Yeah. I will always remember that one as the please don't try to skip a dungeon where all the monsters work together.
Yep.
If they're separate, then it's fine.
Yeah, there's like Lightning Tries to Heap. It's just 3 creatures, 3 3 different types of creatures max. I tend to stick with that as well, so I just don't have a billion things open.
It's a good rule. Try to keep limit things to like a low numbers. But yes, so you can try to avoid these things, mass combats. Again, you can try to do a story that a mass combat will never come up in. That's fine. PCs might say something differently. Be careful of that. That's just PCs. As for large combats, they're cool. They're here. Be ready for them. They're going to be difficult. And they're going to require a little extra work everywhere. Just don't go too crazy. And honestly, if you prepare enough, you can minimize the problems. That's about it. That's the best advice for it. Because again, those big battles where your people burst in on something like heroes and they fight a bunch of things off are pretty cool moments that people like. They're just not easy to run. Ever. Understandable why they are there. So, our week in gaming time.
Yeah.
Did you do anything on Sunday?
Sunday, we had a Sunday game. It was kind of a bit of a downtime game for me. I'm playing a character that doesn't really do a whole lot because I'm the least weird in the party, which is strange to say when I am a gold dragon. We raided a warehouse. We escaped said warehouse. 2 people's dreams got invaded by some horrible elf monster who proceeded to sass both of the player characters. And we got a book from said elf monster in the mail. It's a modern world. Shipping exists. It was overnight shipped to us, clearly. Not magically at all. Just, she used Amazon.
Overnight shipping.
A magic book we have to decipher. That was kind of the session. We didn't. It was a downtime session, kind of. Oh, we also did get paid for raiding the warehouse, and then I think disappointed someone who was paying us because we did steal like every weapon off of the warehouse guards that were lizard people we killed. So she has to sell those now. That's her problem, not mine.
Sounds like good times. Do anything on Monday?
I didn't.
We had another week off. Just things have been going on in Worm's life. Worm is still here. That has been like, not work stuff plus life stuff has just been a lot in the way. So, do definitely feel bad for Worm, but like it happens. I've been there. Definitely, players have been there too. So I've had to deal with it on both ends. So hey, hopefully we will return to that and either get a good continuation. Or I don't know if this will lead to like we have to have some kind of conclusion, or it's like just we want to get back into it again. Life stuff comes in the way. I've dealt with so much goddamn life stuff when it came to like records and legacies, and also
after what, like a year, right?
Legacies just missed so many spots here and there, and I think Records and Legacies both had
Records we missed like a billion sessions.
Yeah, some of Legacies they missed a billion sessions because shit kept coming up here and there. Yeah. So I understand it. Like I'm fortunate that a lot of like shit that happens doesn't happen majorly. Me personally, that makes me have to worry about long term. But every time it happens for a player of mine, I could be in that situation where I'm like, yeah, that shit has happened. If you're running a game, that's a shitload of stuff,
Yeah.
So, anyway. Tuesday, anything?
Tuesday, we did another playtest on Lightning System.
Ooh.
It went pretty well. We have a smattering of types of characters, most of us using kind of different mechanics. It was a system playtest. There'll be another one this Tuesday, and we adjusted some rules. I believe we made better, from what we learned from that playtest, we made better magic rules. And made the dice a bit better for them, made like melee spell rules a little bit better to incentivize melee. Castell did bring up a good point that range shouldn't be the best option in every case, but that is unfortunately just how it works in many systems. Is range will always be the better option than melee.
Yeah.
Some of the feats were scaled back or like their levels were changed. Overall, it was a very good playtest, and we learned a lot about how to make the system better.
The importance of playtests.
Yes.
Definitely. Wednesdays we had Buccaneers. You left the God Realm, and honestly, I was originally going to send you back, but Cell kept saying, I have plane shift, and I'm like, fine, use it. That's really the only reason I did that, was, that. And
I think I'm a little salty at the teleport Cell, because I just don't like that much. I was also in a bad mood that day, to be fair.
Yeah, the teleport stuff was like, honestly, it was fine. It didn't really last long, but I probably could have just...
took like a 30 minutes to an hour of time out of the game.
It did.
Like, that was the main problem.
I think there was a little bit of extra. I think the initial, you meet up, you discuss things, you have to go somewhere and then go plane shift. If that had just been it might have been a little bit better. The teleport stuff would have been like, honestly, you can cast enough. I should have just been like, you'll figure it out eventually. I probably should have done that. But again, I feel like that was me.
Oh, yeah. This does continue to be a theme that Lightning and I joke about, is that we can't go 20 minutes in our Pathfinder game without discussing some form of rule. There's so many rules we all get wrong. Have to look up.
It's one of those unfortunate things, is when you get to higher levels, that just happens to be a thing. You don't have to do that much as lower levels, because there's nothing to do. You don't do a lot. But as soon as you get to those higher levels, you start getting a billion options and have to remember them all, and wait a second, what does this option work with this thing? And I feel like that is an unfortunate side effect.
I will say the planning actually did at least make sense for the characters.
Yeah, no, there was some...
The planning was fine.
Yeah. I feel like it was an okay session, I think. Could have been better, but... and there were some things that I feel like, I should have done a little bit better, too, but wasn't awful. And, you did get into Harrigan's place, and, defeat a couple of the things.
Yep.
Oh, attack of opportunity rules on a boat at level 2. Well, that's me not remembering them. That's me being rusty at Pathfinder rules, which, honestly, I've gotten better remembering a lot of them. Now, I wouldn't have that issue. But even at the beginning of that, because, when we did... Carrying Crown, certain things came up. There were things that didn't come up that were people didn't take advantage of.
There was a year between the end of Carrying Crown and the start of Buccaneers.
And even during that time, I'm saying, there were parts of the rules we didn't get into in Carrying Crown, so it's I'm not going to remember those, because it's been, how long since I've encountered them, and I don't remember them either? But, anyway, yeah. It's Pathfinder is a system that has advantages, disadvantages. Rules heavier do have some disadvantages, but I heard someone talking about it a reason why they wanted to go to Pathfinder 2nd Edition. I heard someone talk about it because sort of it is rules heavier. You've got a lot more of those things, but it's also you don't have to make up rules on the spot and then remember you made up the rules. I can just reference rules. There's a difference between that sometimes.
Rules are also easier to look up because there's not 20 billion books with different rules that contradict each other.
That's true. 2E is a little bit more streamlined, definitely.
Because in 1st edition, you'll have the core rulebook will say, this is how this rule rulebook works, but then the advanced combat guide will say, no, this is actually how that rule works.
Mm-hmm.
But then some adventure path will say, no, it works like this.
It's rules until it's contradicted.
Yeah.
Anyway, but that was Wednesday. It was fine. We've had some weird ups and downs over the last couple of sessions that have been interesting. So I hope it's at least been an interesting story. Did you do anything on Thursday?
I had my Thursday game. They did some more exploring of the big underground jungle. They went and burned and incinerated the growth of living metal to destroy it, because it was spreading. It's kind of like a parasite. It's a bit parasite-y. They have theorized that it is the thing that has been making all of the horrific monsters that have been streaming out of the Underdark. They learned a couple things. They learned that Cell can't roll above a 2 on any important check. Man failed every skill check I gave him. All of them failed. Didn't roll above a 10.
Wow.
The highest number he rolled was 10. Total, by the way.
Wow.
He failed every check I gave him, so I just felt bad for him.
I can understand that. That's
in character. They learned that time is very much broken in the world. Cave they were in, time was flowing backwards. It's not supposed to do that.
Yeah, that seems a little weird.
They also had a seance at the end of the game. I was just going to have the spirit contact the party anyways, but Cell was like, I want to do a seance to contact this ancient spirit. I'm like, alright, fine. And that's the one check he rolled well on. The check that really, realistically, didn't matter that much. Cell nat 20 to seance check.
Well,
so, I mean, you got a seance, I guess.
I was going to say, I remembered why Cell rolled so badly. He used it all up at the end of Wednesday's session when he rolled like 3 criticals on that enemy.
Yeah, he gets all his luck for that. They learned that the sort of planar key that they got will take them to... and the ghost was vague, because ghosts are always vague. That's just how it works in fiction. When you're dead, you become a dick.
Yeah, true.
The longer you're away from your corporeal body, you're a bigger dick. Basically, they were told that if they put this keystone into a portal, it will take them to the end of time, basically.
Interesting. Do they meet a man there that talks about a ship called the Epoch that they have to use to fight a monster called Lavos?
No.
Oh, damn it.
I mean, they might. I don't know yet.
You haven't decided.
Who knows? I gotta keep them guessing, you know.
You're welcome for the reference to Chrono Trigger.
I gotta keep them guessing. Is this just an elaborate reference to every JRPG I've ever played? Maybe.
I sometimes do that. I sometimes add a random reference to a JRPG because I'm just like, it's a neat idea. Why not? I've done that before. It's GM's prerogative. You sometimes just
and then
reference something.
That game ended with where the party druid having his brain broken because he learned how time works. Spoilers, it doesn't work. It's not real. Time isn't real.
Time is an illusion.
Time is an illusion. And a friend of the party traveled through multiple timelines, and I think that may have broken the druid in this entire concept of the world.
Good times.
That was Thursday.
Did you do anything on Friday?
Yeah, I don't do anything on Fridays anymore. That game ended a while ago.
Yeah, I keep thinking about, like, maybe Friday is a good day to, like, if I try to organize something, like, just a little smaller or something, but I gotta figure it out. Yep. One day I will do some more stuff. Cool. Sounds like a pretty decent week of some tabletops and stuff. So, I think that's it for today. Is there anything else I'm forgetting? Probably not. Probably not.
Who knows? I'm forgetting it. It wasn't important.
If you missed my tabletop streams, I talked about Druma on Tuesday, which is honestly every time I dive into one of these countries in Galarian, they're weird and interesting.
Remember the Money Pope one?
Yeah, Money Pope one, yeah. Where they have Money Pope.
Like the king is just the king is the head of the religion, the richest guy at the current time.
Yeah, because it's just their religion on let's earn money. They don't even have. They're like, we don't worship a god, we worship money. And and it's like such weird tenets too, because it's sort of like you could show off a little bit, but not a lot, and you should show up in ways that shows off everybody's wealth, not just your own. You know, it's like, but don't be charitable. Oh god, they're really weird religion, and so I had to dive into that because it's honestly the religion of the country. You know, so it was an interesting discussion, and then I finished up the rare ancestries in on Thursday, and that's an interesting one because there's so many weird, like, humanoids or intelligent species.
There for some of that, it was a bit much.
They're just strange. They have this like weird collection of like plant people and constructs and
Flesh warps or whatever.
Which one was that?
The flesh warpers. Or
oh,
whatever.
The flesh warps, where like you hung around a place with a bit of weird magic and you just became some kind of weird monstrosity randomly. Congratulations. That is a thing that happens, and it's weird.
Yay.
But yeah, so it was interesting enough. So check those out. They'll eventually go up on YouTube and stuff. So gaming-wise, I will just finish up today by saying I will play some more Super Metroid Randomizer and hopefully finish up now that I've suffered through having to beat the frickin' ghost with like no health and like the first suit.
Perfect.
It was highly unpleasant. It took me like 10 attempts or more. I don't actually know. I lost count of how many times I had to fight that goddamn thing. A lot, but I beat it then. And it did unlock for me the speed boost, which was, I don't know, something you really need in Super Metroid.
A little bit.
Just a little bit. So that's a thing, and we'll figure out what's going on the rest of the week. But I think we'll get going. Momo, thank you for joining me. Buccaneers Wednesday, this show next week. Tabletop Talk every Tuesday, Thursday, and gaming stream where I roll a wheel and figure out what the hell I'm doing, including some randomizers, which is really fun, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays. So check all those out. And I've got YouTube and all that stuff. If you're here on YouTube, check out Twitch. If you're here on Twitch, check out YouTube. Those are the things I have to shout out for today. So hope everybody enjoys themselves, enjoys the rest of your Saturday, and hopefully, you'll be back here next week, and, I'll certainly try to be here. So until those times occur, I'm going to say farewell, everybody out there, and have yourselves a good rest of the day. Bye-bye. Pressing start. Bye-bye. Why did I drop 57 frames?